We do have an extraordinary unwritten constitution, don't we, here? I mean, there is nothing new about, ultimately, the Prime Minister determining not only the fate of his own ministers, but his own fate. But, I mean, many people would say that's not satisfactory, given the current circumstances.
Well, that's part of the problem, is that in our unwritten constitution, a Prime Minister with a large majority can do and say and act on anything they like. They have power, and they have... as you mentioned, people on the payroll, the Prime Minister has about 100 people from his own party on the payroll who are going to support him. There's no independent judiciary. You know, he can abolish the Supreme Court if he likes. I mean, they came out with a ruling today saying that the contracting of PPE contracts was illegal. But he can just abolish them if he wants.
Now, it may amuse you that yesterday I was reminded of summoning the opening scenes of your rather brilliant movie, The Death of Stalin, because it was very, very striking that there was this huge furore in the UK over this party on May the 20th. We had a cabinet meeting, and not a single cabinet minister asked the Prime Minister what had happened.
Yes.
Today... after a statement which revealed not very much, the whole payroll is out in force saying what a wonderful man the Prime Minister is. And as I say, it was a bit like that bit of the where they're all, you know, I wondered whether, in a sense, they're all as frightened of Boris Johnson as Stalin's ministers.
They're not doing it very well, because Nadim Zawi is normally quite an elegant, eloquent and coherent individual, but all through his attempt to explain what Boris Johnson was doing there, he was stuttering and stammering, and it's full of pauses. And that whole interview would have had more credibility if there was a laughter track added to it, because throughout it you could hear a million ethical stink bombs going off in his head as he was trying to negotiate the kind of peculiar circular logic that his bosses put him in.
Yeah, I mean, these are extraordinary times, and fortunately, we've got you for a bit longer. I've got much more to talk about. Don't go away. Much more from Armando Ianucci, and, of course, some other brilliant guests, John McDonnell, Caroline next. Don't go away. There is quite a lot to discuss. Thank you very much. You reminded me, actually, curiously, at the lobby briefing today, one of the questions that the Prime Minister's official spokesman couldn't answer is it normal for the Prime Minister to drink at work? To which, and on that one, they didn't even say wait for the Sue Gray report, yes. Although pretty much every other question was wait for the Sue Gray report. One of the most striking things about what's happened is this latest crisis was fomented by Dominic Cummings. You know, he wrote this blog at the end of last week in which he revealed the existence of this party on the 20th of May. I mean, he is an absolutely extraordinary character, actually, in the history of sort of British politics. I mean, in a sense, you could say he made Boris Johnson, and now he's sort of bringing him down.
What I found is more extraordinary is that he knew about this. He was up before a select committee last year sometime and went into great detail about the handling of the pandemic. Why didn't he mention it then? It was, you know, it's a serious point of information that would have, you know, made a huge difference to the debate we were having about how this whole process has been run. Why didn't he mention it? Why has he held on to this piece of information? Who else knew about it and has been holding on for the right moment? You know, why didn't the country know when it happened? People were walking past Number 10, hearing loud laughter in the garden.
Yeah, I mean,
did the media know about it? But I mean, just waiting for the right moment.
I mean, certainly I didn't know about this, or indeed any of the other.
But I think what
parties.
Strikes is that I think why it's caused such, why it's been such a kind of cataclysmic effect on politics at the moment is it just connects with that idea that I think a lot of people have, which is, you know, are politicians a different breed? Are they, or people who work within politics? Do they think it's just a game or a bit of a lark, and that somehow they find themselves at a young age, having read the right books and speaking confidently, in charge, and then suddenly realising that actually they're out of their depth? But it is a bit of like when we saw the Allegra Stratton footage of the mock press conference, the shocking thing to me was none of them were saying, but this is awful, we had a party. All of them were trying to come up with the best-sounding lie to tell, almost as if people in that environment have forgotten what truth and lies are and what separates them.
So I mean, just on that, I mean, when you know, wrote The Thick of It, when you wrote Veep, do you think your characters had more of a moral core than most of the...
I certainly think they do. I mean, I always said to people that, you know, they haven't killed anyone and they haven't committed a crime. If anything, I felt the way into those programmes was through the eyes of the elected official, was through Selina Meyer, the Vice President, and was through Nicola Murray, the Minister. And it was the coterie of unelected and weirdly, you know, under 12 years old kind of advisors around them who hadn't experienced, who hadn't really done a job, who don't know what it's like to buy a car, you know, or to buy a house, or to, you know, that's the thing that shocked me, really. And that's the thing I wanted to get across. What, you know, why is politics operating like this? And does it actually have to be like this? And
just on your latest, sort of, in a sense, work in this sphere, you know, you've just published a sort of epic poem in the style of Milton. Why, in terms of...
About COVID, about the whole...
About COVID,
2
exactly.
years, yeah.
I was going to say, but why, in writing about this appalling, momentous period in our history, did you sort of feel, you know, you had to go back to the 17th century?
Well, it was more... I think what I didn't want to do was belittle what had happened.
No.
So rather than reduce the likes of Johnson and Hancock, who, by the way, on May the 21st, went out at a press conference and said, don't take advantage of the sunshine to go out and have garden parties. That was the day after. I didn't want to reduce them to tiny... You know, I thought, let's put them on... Let's equate them with gods and heroes, you know, from Greek, from Virgil and Homer and so on. How do they stand up against that? You know, if they want to act big, let's see how big they can act, and let's see how they look when in contrast to real heroes and real gods. So that's what I wanted to do. And I also wanted to draw on just the personal, I think the personal experiences we've all shared as a community, as a country, as a world, really. You know, the private sense of isolation and loss that we've all shared, matched against the effect on our lives by these people making the decisions. Really.
And actually, I mean, I want to bring in, if I could, you know, John and Caroline on this in a moment. I mean, do you think, therefore, against this momentous background, that what we have learned in recent weeks about the culture, the party culture in Downing Street, will turn out to be, I hate this phrase, tipping point, but, you know, a bit like the Iraq War was for Blair, or, you know, tumbling out the ERM was for John Major.
I think it might be, and it's less about a political event and more, I think, about a kind of as arriving at a perception of what's going on. And as I say, much of my career has been spent trying to demystify this strange world that has this peculiar logic behaviour in it. I think now we're seeing it. We're asking ourselves... I mean, I cannot think of another Prime Minister or Leader of the Opposition from the past 40, 50 years who would have allowed that to happen. I just can't... I can't think of one. All of them would have said, this is absurd. Why do you need the benefit of hindsight when you walk out into a garden full of trestle tables and bows and you have 20 minutes there? You don't need hindsight.
And on that, Caroline, John, I mean, does this feel to you like a turning point, Caroline?
Well, it feels very much, as we've just heard, that the PM's been badly advised. He's been surrounded by people who maybe are too young and inexperienced. I always use the phrase, not so much as elected to a parish council. And that, I think, and I know that John will feel this as well, when you're an elected member of Parliament, you feel a massive responsibility to your constituents, to the country, to make the right decisions, to do the right thing. And that doesn't appear to have been the attitude that was prevailing amongst staff in Downing Street. And it really should. It has to. We're in the middle of a pandemic still. We've worked really hard to get to a position where there are good therapeutics, where there are effective vaccines. And yet all of that hard work has been undermined by a prevailing attitude that the rules apply to some people and not others. And that's what sticks in the craw of my constituents, that they've done the right thing, they've abided by the rules, and they feel they're being laughed at.
But you choose the people who advise you. You know, you're in charge, you're the boss.
That's exactly right.
It's your judgment as to who you pick to have around you.
But, John, does this feel to you like the sort of cultural equivalent of what happened to the Tories when they tumbled out of the exchange rate mechanism?
I think it is. I hope it is. because there's lots of lessons. Because the point that Amanda was just making, you create a culture in which people, all of them within that closed circle, operate in that way. And you get to a situation, and I do blame Boris Johnson for this, because he has a track record, unfortunately, of being a liar. You create a culture where people cannot tell truth from lie, and almost fact from fiction as well. And that's what's happened. And it isn't just the parties. You know, we've had Amanda mentioned it earlier, the contract awards, the corruption of that. So I think a culture has been created around Johnson that has shocked people now, because the curtains have been opened and they've looked in. I'm hoping now we're at a transformative moment where lessons are learnt and we can move on.
My hope also is that it isn't just directed at Boris Johnson and isn't just directed at the Conservative Party. As I said, this is something I think has been creeping into politics the last 15, 20, 25 years. This sense that it's a world apart and where the rules are a bit different. I mentioned the power that we give the Prime Minister, that the Prime Minister can create Supreme Courts, can shut down Supreme Courts. I hope this opens up a question about, you know, how does politics work in this country, and how do the people at the top, what powers do they have, and what powers can we have to be able to kind of to mark them?
There are issues there.
I certainly agree that this issue of whether, particularly a sort of social media world, means that our unwritten constitution is fit for purpose is an absolutely vital one. So, look, thank you so much for coming on. Lovely to see you.